self-proclaimed nerd. I love anything that has nerd and involved, any Star Trek, Star Wars, Doctor Who, you name it. If it's nerdy, I probably like it. And so when I heard about the EntrepreNERD Summit, I'm like, oh, this is right up my alley. And so I had to reach out to Michael, who is our host of the EntrepreNERD Summit. This is EntrepreNERD Summit 6, the return of the summit that is going to be happening in next month, actually. So Michael, so glad to have you joining us today.
Yeah, great to be here. Yeah, so episode 6 is, of course, the third one. The first one was episode 4, a new summit, followed by episode 5, the summit strikes back, and this is episode 6, return of the summit.
Awesome. Super excited to learn a little bit more about this today. And it's interesting. I'm actually in the middle of listening to a Star Wars audiobook. It's like 20 hours long, massive, like the history of all of it. And
Nice.
Right now we're just wrapping up with the 2nd or 5th movie, depending on how you look at it, and moving into the last of the original trilogy. And so it's been really kind of interesting learning like so much of the history. The book was published in, I think, 2012 or 13. So like it doesn't even have anything to do with the last trilogy or all of the shows that have been spun off. I'm like, this is a really good time to be a nerd. Between Star Trek and Star Wars, there's massive amount of content being put out. But that's not all about what being a nerd's about. So tell us a little bit about the summit and your inspiration and how you feel you're nerdy.
Yeah, so the concept came about at an event that I was at back in 2 years ago. What year was that? 2021. That's what we call that. And Laura Lake and I were in a breakout room, and I don't remember how the conversation came up, but somehow she said EntrepreNERD, and I was like, that should be an event. And I'm like, yeah, it should be. And so we had some follow-up calls, and nothing really came of it because at the time I was running my summits manually, shall we say. So I was building my own landing pages and building my own applications and doing everything myself. So this seemed like a fun project, but it didn't seem worth the undertaking it would be to put on another summit. And then I discovered EventRaptor, which is an amazing back-end platform for running summits that does all that for me. So I need to find the speakers, although not all of them because they have a speaker directory. I need to run it and come up with the concepts and the graphics that you see flickering behind me. I blame Restream for that, not my green screen. Yeah, the graphic looks clearer on the website. It's phasing out of reality, you know. But so it does a lot of the back end work, and so then I was like, ooh, hey, that cool idea I had, that summit thing. Hey, Laura, it's time. I've got the technology. Let's do it. And so it was last summer that we ran episode 4, and the concept of it is that there's all these summits out there where summits are good to go to because you're going to meet a bunch of people, learn some new ideas. Same reason as the podcast. You're going to hear ideas you don't know, meet people you don't know you need to meet. The problem is that most summits suck. They're boring. They're repetitive. It's stuff you've already heard. The talks are too long. There's no engagement. The worst of them are recorded, where it's basically a series of YouTube videos. And yeah, the worst ones are where we go to a page and it's just a list of videos that you can watch anytime. Like, that's not a summit. That's just a content library, which is fine, I guess, if you want a content library. And then there's some where it is live, but all the guests or all the audience has their cameras turned off and the speakers are just like talking at you, blah, blah, blah. So let's do the opposite of that. Let's do something where we have the same quality speakers, experts, people who really know what they're doing. They've got something to share, but let's make it more engaging. And so the format is 15-minute talks with 15 minutes of engagement in between. They're not breaks, they're engagement. So each speaker speaks 15 minutes. They're going to make probably 1 point, teach one thing, maybe 2 or 3 things if they talk fast. And then we're going to do either breakouts or Q&A or hot seat coaching or something to get you to turn on your camera and your microphone so you're really there. So you've got the energy of being a live event. And then on top of that, we layered the geekiness. So EntrepreNERD is for, as I say, the summit for cool entrepreneurs who happen to be geeks. It's not a geek summit. It's not about computers and teleportation and AI, although I'm sure we'll definitely have things about that in the future. I'd already confirmed all my speakers by the time ChatGPT came out and everyone started using it. But it's a summit for entrepreneurs who happen to be geeks. So networking coaches who happen to be geeks, and business by referral coaches who happen to be geeks, and mindset coaches who happen to be geeks. So the point of it is that we have something in common beyond just entrepreneurship. And so we can share our love of Star Trek and Star Wars, and we can, so some of the titles of some of the talks we have are, well, yours, First Contact, Networking Star Trek Style, Communicate Better Than a Wookiee. Let's see, what else do we have? What would Yoda do using the Force to improve your business? My favorite one, which is basically a geeky dad joke, it is the top Sith Wookiee mistakes to avoid in your storytelling, which is her regular talk is the top 6 rookie mistakes. So,
gotcha.
Like, oh my God.
I was trying to figure out like how the Sith and the Wookiee kind of go together, because I'm like, I don't know that I've ever heard of a Wookiee using the Force.
Yeah, it's just a dad pun. Which that's the way to my heart. But so it's that kind of thing, that kind of humor, that kind of engagement. And as you said, it's a great time to be a nerd, because we still remember when we had between 0 and 5 friends in school who were into this stuff, and everyone else is like, what's a Star Trek? And now it's like 80% of the population's into this stuff between the Marvel movies and Star Wars.
Just did a thing on LinkedIn to see of my network what percentage of them were into Star Wars, into Star Trek, into both, or neither. And only 25% of my network, it said neither. Yeah. I had 31% of my network that is into both, 29% into Star Wars, 15% into Star Trek. So, I mean, it's not an end-all be-all. It's who's my network on LinkedIn. But yeah, only a quarter of the population doesn't do it now. Whereas before, we were probably lucky if, like you said, 5 friends.
Yeah, so this is the super secret niching hack, is find a niche that's actually really big, but that people feel is really small, and then niche to it. So EntrepreNERD is a really big niche that feels really small. Because you remember when you didn't know anyone else, or you had to find your sci-fi club because all your other friends were like, oh, you're hanging out with your weirdos today? And now we're all weirdos. Or at least conversant with it, even if you're not, from a geek from back in the day. I know what it meant to not being a geek back in the day. I was like, oh yes, I definitely saw Star Wars when I was in school. Yep, definitely saw Phantom Menace in the theaters. Certainly didn't skip it. Because now the nerds are the cool ones. Geeks have inherited the earth. But just that's the concept, is making it fun, and because you learn better when you're having fun. You network better when you're having fun. When it's just like, I am going to teach, the days of I am going to teach you how to increase your sales by 63% using this 9-step process. Let's begin with step 1. You can't do it anymore. Like you need to engage. It needs to be fun. And you're not going to remember if you're not having fun, because if you're not having fun, you're not going to pay attention. You're on your computer. Your computer is full of internet. You've got Facebook, you've got Twitter, you've got, hopefully you're not even going to TikTok and watching videos during a summit. That you might as well log out.
And even if you're not on your computer, you've got, the iPad, the iPhone, the watch, the whatever else is on your desk, or if you're driving, or
Yeah, let me just quickly check something while they're talking about this thing I don't care about. Yeah. So that's what I was going for. And I do, so I run a number of summits. I actually currently have, it's funny. I was on a networking call with Event Raptor yesterday, and Steve said, yes, I think Michael has 3 summits looking for applicants. How many summits do you have? How many have you done? I'm like, I don't know. Let me go count. Turns out I've done 6, and I have 6 currently in production.
Wow.
That are either, like this one, the applications are closed, speakers are in, but episode 1, the Phantom Summit, is coming up on April 17th, and episode 2, the Attack of the Summit, is coming up on June 26th. So applications for those are both open. And then I've got a GSD Marketing Summit and a Neurodiversity Superpower Summit that are coming up. So I'm going to be running a whole lot of summits partly because the Event Raptor platform is so easy to use. I can go in and be like, plug, bing, run a summit. Now, it's only easy because I can just hop on camera and be like, yeah, I'm going to MC this thing for 6 hours. Woohoo! Can I do it tomorrow too? If you don't like that, you probably shouldn't be running 6 summits in 3 months. because you'll hate your life. But I love it because, and I love it because we can create an engaging environment where it is fun. I was actually making a list at the end of the year of like, what do I want to do next year besides get my wife out of her job? What are my goals? And there's some like, pay off debts and this and that. And I'm writing it, and I get to spend time with people who make you happy, because I just completed the Blue Purple Summit, which was a summit where all the guests, all the speakers were women with blue or purple hair, which was a lot of the same kind of people who would come to the EntrepreNERD Summit. And it was such a great time, and it was so much fun. It was just a party with business. And I'm like, I want to do that a lot. So, I write, spend time with people who make you happy on the board, on my list of things I want to do. And suddenly, like, the clouds part and the angels sing and the light, a beam of light shines through the window right onto that part of the board. I was like, oh, maybe I should focus on this part. So I run summits that are fun, that are engaging. And there's other summits out there. I was just talking to someone who's helping her, going to help her find speakers. And it's going to be much bigger. It's going to have hundreds of people, and I'm sure it's going to be very financially successful. I'm sure it'll be well run too. It'll have these great speakers, well established names. But the bigger it gets, the less engaging it can be, unless it's really built around that. Like JVIC's Collaborate, which gets about 280 people. It's not a summit; it's a single presenter event. They have a lot of breakouts, and they have a lot of intentional networking, so there is engagement there, but you have to be really careful to build it that way. Whereas with ours, we're going to have, we have 30, 40, 50 people on the call, so you're not scrolling through six screens on Zoom to see everybody. So in the Q&As after each one, you get to know the people who are on there, and the speakers tend to hang around. It's not the kind of event where a speaker drops in, does their talk, and leaves, like a lot of events I've seen. I actually had one speaker who plan to just stay there's an amount of time I require them to be there to engage and be part of it. And I was like, I just plan to stay the time I was required to. And now it appears to be 5 o'clock and we're done, and I'm still here. And I think her talk was at like 11. So, people get pulled into it once they realize like, oh, this isn't that kind of, this is like a party on the internet.
I know I got the opportunity to attend the last summit. But it was kind of one of those things. I had some stuff already scheduled that day. So I like popped in for a little bit and popped off, and I'm like, oh, I wish I could hang out. Cause I love the nerdy people, though. I do have to say, for those of you that if you're checking this out and you're thinking, Tiffanie, I'm really not a nerd. Like, as I'm working on my presentation, my goal is, cause I'm like, I can go really, really geeky on this, and like, how in depth do I want to go? But I'm like, just because they're nerds doesn't mean that they're Star Trek fans. So mine is Star Trek theme. It's networking. Looking at it from a first contact perspective. So you're meeting somebody for the first time. How do you treat them? But I'm like, it's light. It's not like really you have to have watched all the series and know all of this. And because I was like, oh, we could talk about this. And I'm like, oh, I got to keep it. I'm like, not everybody is a Star Trek nerd. Though I'll probably throw a little bit of Star Wars in there too. Maybe some Doctor Who. We're just going to get nerdy with it. But it's one of those, if you don't know, you won't be missing most of the message. You just won't get the inside joke part that us nerds tend to love. And
it tends to be, it's geek flavored.
Yeah. It's not geek only, but geek flavored.
Yeah. Well, and the fun thing too is I've had the chance to hang out with geeks who were geeks about things I didn't know well. And it's still fun because you sort of draft off their enthusiasm. Someone will say something and flip it a gibbet. Like, oh, flip it a gibbet. And you're like, yeah, I bet that's funny. I'm gonna just kind of ride with it. And it's just fun to be with people who are sharing their geek, whatever that might happen to be. So it's just the energy and the vibe, and that's the whole point of it. Is you've got to learn stuff. You've got to expose yourself to new knowledge in some way, and podcasts are a way to do that. Lives are a way to do that, but you can't interact with them. So if you're listening to a podcast and you're like, oh, this is interesting, I'd like to know more. Well, I guess you can go to their website and then maybe get on their list, and maybe there's content, or maybe they just sell you something, or maybe you get their freebie, maybe you get a discovery call. I don't know. But in a summit, a live interactive summit, you can actually ask them a question. You can put something in the chat. You can, private chat with them after their talk's over, when the next talk's going on. That you're in the room with them. And I really try to make it in the room together. and not just because sometimes also you're on a summit, you're at a Zoom call with somebody, but you're not really in the room with them. You know, they're there, you're there, but you're not like even if you're private messaging, they're not responding, or there's just too much going on and they're not engaging. Which again, the great thing about the size and scale we operate at, that is not 100 people. You know, I'd rather because there's summits out there. I mean, we'll get 200 to 500 registrations generally, which gives us usually at about 10 to 20% show rate. So it's 20 to 50 people throughout the day are in there. There's summits out there getting 1,000, 2,000 registrations, which is great for the people running them. You know, they've got bigger audiences coming in, but in terms of the experience of the event, it's for some people it can be great. Like the summits that Event Raptor themselves run, they can do a bigger event at scale. They create an amazing vibe. They are awesome. They're who I learned it from. And so I kind of spawned off a smaller version because I could run it at my scale. But just so many of these bigger summits, it's just so disengaged, or the speaker's there and you've got questions for you and want to engage with them further, and they're not there anymore. They speak and they leave. They're like, all right, thanks, peace out. Sign up for my freebie, get on my list. I'm out. You know, they're not there to message with afterwards. They're not. And then as I said, the other summits that are even structurally more separated, they're in webinar format or they're in recording format or whatever, and you might as well just be watching YouTube videos or listening to a podcast.
Yeah, mine will definitely be interactive. I'm not 100% sure, you know, I've got about an hour's worth of content to cram into 15 minutes, and I talk fast enough as it is. So I work on slowing it down. The goal is not, so I'm not going to try and talk really fast because I can. We're going to come up with a couple really easy tips to really make networking impactful. Now, my presentation's at 1:30, so you can come for that or hopefully come for it all. The price on this summit is a pretty good price, isn't it, Michael?
It is. It is $0.
Can't beat that.
Yeah, it's pretty good. $0. It is no dollars.
Yeah. So to enroll, you can go to bit.ly/TAK, which are my initials, Tiffanie and Kellog, nerd, to make it easy for you. You can get your free ticket, pop in for a little bit, stay for the whole day. Totally up to you. We hope to see you there. We're going to have a ton of fun. And anything else you want to leave us with, Michael, before we sign off?
Yep. Yeah. So two things. One is definitely register early and often. Not often, just once. Register early and then tell your friends. You know, don't just register the morning of the event because we had too many applicants. Again, can you have too many applicants? We had more applicants than we had room for live again. So what we're going to do is something we did at a previous event that's very successful. Those who we can't fit into the live agenda are going to pre-record content, and we're going to send that out by email in the days leading up to the summit. So there will be bonus speakers. I haven't gotten confirmation how many of the speakers are in for that, but as many as 5. So over the 5 days leading up to the summit, there'll be 10, and they're 10-minute talks. So I always watch YouTube when I eat lunch. So I got this idea from another summit that was the whole summit. It's 22 days, an email a day with a 10-minute talk. And I was like, we could just put that in the front end of our summit.
Yeah.
So that way you kind of get warmed up to it, get some content while you're eating lunch, watch one of the videos. They're not 45 minutes long. They're just a quick little thing.
And if you watch like me, like time and a half speed, then you're only looking at like 7
6
minutes.
Right. Yep. And the other thing is, it's something I wanted to mention to you and to anyone else watching, an idea is, you know, if you've got an hour of stuff and 15 minutes to share it in, it is totally okay to say, I've got an hour of stuff and only 15 minutes. I'm going to be giving a follow-up talk on Wednesday. Come join me, which is a great way to kind of give more value and draw those folks in. And it's a great organic way to prospect, basically. Because, you know, if you look at, you know, if you pull the cover off and look at the marketing underneath, it's basically a funnel. You're moving them from the small talk to a more intimate, larger talk that takes longer, and then down the path. But nobody feels like they're being sold to in that. They're like, I like what you said. I want more of what you said. And then you teach more at the next talk. And eventually they're like, what can I give you money for? Yeah. Which is, it was so many things we see in our space are focused on the, like, buy my stuff, or I'm not going to tell you the secret, you know, learn 3 secrets of marketing, or learn 3 secrets of first contact. And there's 3 secrets. They're amazing secrets. The first secret will help you to do this, but I'm not going to tell you that. And the second secret is this, but I'm not going to tell you how to do it. And if you come to my follow-up talk, then I'll also not tell you there, but I'll give you a chance to give me money to also not tell you in the next class.
Yeah,
I don't invite people like that to my events. Some people slip through sometimes, but I want people who are going to provide actual value, actual content, so that at the end of that 15 minutes, you're like, I know a thing. Will it be transformative? Will it change your life? Will it change your whole strategy? Probably not. But it's one more thing, one more arrow in your quiver. And one of the things you learn throughout the day, which I say, don't come just one talk, come for the whole day. One of the things and probably the talk that you're like, I wasn't thinking about listening to that one. I don't know if I'm interested in that. That's going to be the one where you're like, holy mackerel, I never thought about that. I can make this little tweak in how I send my emails or how I, approach people at networking events or how I do follow-ups. And I can just add that, because you don't want someone who's going to change your whole strategy. You don't want to change your whole business, because then you got to stop everything and start over. That's shiny object syndrome. But when it's that little tweak of like, I just need to ask this one question whenever I meet someone, or I need to, do one little thing in what I'm already doing, just a slight evolution, can be very powerful. And that's the kind of thing that you learn at this kind of event. Plus, if you're like, I think I got it, but I don't know how to execute, you raise your virtual hand. And you say, hey, Tiffanie, could you go a little deeper with that? Or, could we role play that or whatever? And the format is 15-minute talk and 15 minutes of interactive. But if someone raises their little virtual hand and says, hey, could we role play that so I can see how it really works? That's interaction. I'm letting that run. So, because that you don't get that at most, you certainly don't get it on a podcast. You can't call into the podcast and be like, hey, I know you recorded this 3 weeks ago, but. But
no,
yeah,
I do occasionally get people reaching out to me from podcasts saying, I heard this. So
nice, yeah.
It does happen very rarely.
Yeah, but it's hard to call in live, though.
No, there is no calling in live. Yeah, and that's what I love about doing lives is you can have that. But yeah, it's a different thing. So February 13th. So we're going to share some love right before Valentine's Day, the day after Super Bowl. I'm like, ooh, all right. So sandwich between Super Bowl and the Valentine's Day.
I was not even thinking about the adjacencies on that until you mentioned it. I'm like, oh yeah, that is Valentine's Day. I was like, it fits my calendar. That's where it drops.
I totally get you. So I will be talking about networking, first contact style via Star Track. There are amazing other things happening during the event. It runs from 11 to 5 p.m. Eastern time. No charge. All you have to do is go to bit.ly/TAKnerd. Enroll, get your free ticket, get some goodies beforehand. And Michael and I will look forward to seeing you on the 13th of February. All right. Happy networking, y'all.